Hello, my name is Scott Ottoes. I'm with the Oracle company, and we are here today to share with you the work that we did with mobile field services. I'm here with my colleague, Brenda Scott-Fong, and we're going to be talking about the actual context of the field team and the profile around that. We'll be talking about the planning and preparation that went around that, and then specifically I'll be talking about testing and the global development, and then lastly what our next steps are.
Hi, my name is Brenda Scott-Fong, and I am the Senior Director of Practice Management. I would like to take just a few minutes to talk about my team and the role that we played in the mobile field service implementation. So as you can see, we actually align to Scott's team, which is a customer services technology. I'm sure we're probably one of his toughest customers. But our goal is to develop best practices for the hardware service delivery organization. And through that development of best practices, that includes either the development of new processes or the revision of current processes. But our goal is to standardize them across the business. So for example, we've got a practice team that represents the field. And in the field, you have regional representatives that sit in on that team. So we have those teams for dispatch, field, logistics, and technical support. And our goal is to standardize the processes within each of those practices and then simplify those processes, making them repeatable so that we can then drive them through the system through automation. Now, in order to do that, we'll work with Scott and his team, who in turn also work with OAL, to roll out and implement enhancements to the system. And so through this mobile field service application, our team played a role in putting processes in place to align to it and also to help with any of the enhancements that were required as part of the application rollout. We'll also talk about one of our big key factors, which was increasing productivity and the elimination of waste. And I'll talk more about that as we go through the next slides. So through the next couple of slides, I want to talk about the profile or the landscape of the field operations group. We had about 1,600 field engineers that participated in this implementation. And through those 1,600 field engineers, there were approximately 103 field manager territories. So we aligned about 20 to 22 field engineers to a field manager, and they represented a territory. And that kind of gave us an idea of how long and how many folks would be involved in the implementation. We ended up with about, I'm going to say about a 12-week process that included all of these alignments in addition with dispatchers. In addition to that, we set a goal for being able to complete all the training, have everyone complete the training. About 75% was our goal, and we were actually lucky enough to hit 98%. We also had guidelines that basically said we can't remove the field engineers from the field. We need them to stay focused on the customers. And so in order to do that, and we'll talk more about this, we had to establish training programs that allowed the field engineer to take the training at any place, anywhere, at any time. And so no travel was required for any of the training. That tells you a little bit about the landscape for the field operations group. Now let's talk about, the requirements that we looked at for the mobile field service application. Why would we choose to move away from our current application to the mobile field service application? Well, for one, the majority of our field engineers already had the Android. And so it was easy enough to consider that as a device. We also know that mobile field service application was going to be rolling out and be compatible with the tablets of the future. And so that's the direction we're looking at going, and so we want to make sure that we can actually use those devices as well. From a usability perspective, what was really important was being able to have quick data access. So with the application, a field engineer was able to review a task very quickly. They were able to update a task very quickly. And for example, if they opened a task and they were looking at a customer's address and preparing to go to their location, you would see that what would happen is it would show an address. They could click on that address and immediately be taken to a map application that actually shows them the directions to the customer site. So it was that kind of quick data access that really got our attention. Second, there was also the need for a barcode scanner. Currently what was happening is whenever a part has to be returned, a field engineer actually has to enter in that part number information into the system, and this is a manual activity. Having a barcode scanner allowed them to scan the part so that the information went into the system automatically, and it had eliminated any error that would have occurred on behalf of human intervention. When we look at the requirements, so I have to say that the one item that caught my attention, and for good reason, because it actually aligned to one of the projects we were rolling out, was the offline real-time capabilities. We were also rolling out at this time another project that was complete, accurate, and timely reporting. And that really requires for us to ensure that that tasks are debriefed in a timely manner. And so one of our goals was to debrief a task within 30 minutes of finishing a field activity at a customer site. Our field engineers kept saying, no, we can't do that because we don't have a network connection. And so what we found was that they weren't debriefing and closing out their task sometimes even at the end of the day. It could go for a week, it could go for a month. And so from a reporting perspective, that really hurt us. Having the offline real-time capability meant that a field engineer could go ahead, once they completed the on-site activity, they could go into their application, they could debrief it. It didn't matter whether they had a network connection or not. They could go ahead and debrief and close. And as soon as they got to a location where a network connectivity would occur, then they were able to sync up and have that information available to them. So there was no more excuses around not being able to debrief in a timely manner. So the offline capabilities was huge for us. It also allowed them to work at dark sites where there wasn't a connection. They could still look at their tasks, they could still update their task even at dark sites. So the other requirement was obviously the performance. We wanted to make sure that the application was going to be quick, and when it come to logging in, we wanted to make sure that the login was quick, and it was definitely much quicker than the application that we were operating on. And there were other performance opportunities that we had with mobile field service that we didn't have with the current application. So that kind of sets the landscape and kind of profiling for the mobile field service application. Now I want to talk more about how we prepared and the planning that went into preparing the field for a change. First of all, we had to procure the mobile devices. As I stated earlier, several field engineers already had the Android device, but not everyone. And so one of the things we had to do was ensure that we had the mobile devices available to them globally. This sounds easy, however, there were quite a few stumbling blocks that we encountered. For example, not every country has 3G or 4G. Not every country has the exact phone that we were looking for. And so we struggled with being able to acquire the devices in all the countries. One of the things, though, that helped us was we worked with Scott and his team, and they actually worked with OAL and PD to put together a list of technical specifications. And basically what that meant was we had at least 5 different devices that had been tested that we could consider for purchase for the field engineers. And they also listed both minimum and maximum requirements. So from a budgeting perspective, that really helped those operations directors determine which phone they wanted for their field engineers based on their location. Once we actually had the devices procured, then we had to start preparing the field engineers for change. And as most of you know, some people embrace change and others struggle with it. And we had a mixture of both. So we really had to work with management and helping the field engineers get used to the fact that we were going to move from our current application to the new mobile field service application. And there was a lot of positive aspects for being able to do that. So we took the marketing approach. We actually started advertising, the capability of the application, letting them see screenshots. We worked with upper management to send out communications, so we had them talk about it, in their field manager meetings so that information could be coming from management, their management, that this was an application that would really benefit all of us in the long run. So having that sponsorship from management really went a long way. Next, we had to prepare for planning of the training. Again, I mentioned earlier that there was no travel involved. We wanted to make sure that the field engineers could stay focused on the customers, but be able to go through a training program at a time that's convenient for them. And so what we ended up doing was we put the training online, and we actually worked with what we call weblets, which was basically taking a training end to end, but you break it up into segments. And so, for example, there'd be a segment for how to download the application and put it on the phone. There would be a segment on how to review a task. And so by having these weblets set up, it allowed a field engineer to sit down and actually go through the training. They could actually spend 15 minutes in the training, stop, come back to it later, because they had these weblets that they can work with. We also made sure that the training was available to them online and also at a time that was convenient for them. Then once we actually had laid out the plan for training, we also had to look at how we were going to support Scott and his team. When they actually started testing and we started rolling out the implementation, we had to look at how we would establish support teams, so that as the field engineers were going through the implementation, the rollout, if they had questions, you know, who could they go to get their questions answered? And what if they found things about the application that they weren't happy with? Keep in mind that this was an application that we were selling our customers. And as part of Oracle, we wanted to also eat our own dog food, so to speak. So we wanted to make sure that we were testing this before our customers started using it. And if there was opportunity for us to give feedback and make improvements, we wanted to make sure we were participating in that. So we had this whole section set up for support and feedback, so that the super users would be available to gather that feedback from the field engineers. We would then make sure that that information would go over to Scott and his team for testing. So that's kind of the process we went through for planning the implementation. Then we had to put together the strategy. Again, it's all about the planning. Everything that we've done up to this point is just really planning for this implementation. The strategy was around having 12 different groups that would be part of a rollout. So we got 1,600 field engineers, if you can imagine, dividing them into 12 groups. And each of those groups had representatives from each of the regions. And then each of the regions had a different group of super users that were supporting them. But what we did is we went through this process whereby the first week, that group of field engineers would actually go through the training. They had a whole week to complete the training, keeping in mind that they had to go out on site and take care of customers as well, but they had a whole week to complete the training. And the training probably wasn't more than, if you were to sit down and go start to finish, more than about 2.5 hours. Once they completed that training, then they would go into a sandbox where they would work for a week and just really play around and get used to their device. In some cases, many of them had the new device and this new application. And then at the end of that second week, then we would roll them into production. And so as you can see, the strategy was built to actually have 12 different groups that actually went through, and it took about 14 weeks to complete it. Now, the next section I'm going to turn over to Scott, and Scott's going to talk about what happened from a testing and implementation phase. So let me hand it over to you, Scott.
So I want to give you a sense of what each of our organizations are about. My team is called Customer Services Technology, and basically we own the systems and tools that are used by our customer support business. We evaluate and sign off on the applications and solutions for the business. We manage the overall global testing, regression testing and UAT testing. We do the training and the initial user support in terms of the deployment that we have, and as well as the enhancements and definitions and prioritization of those functions and projects that we're working on. So I'm going to be talking now about testing and the global deployment that we had for mobile field services. So our engagement model is really top to bottom, going from the product development standpoint in terms of the new tools that they're developing, working with them in IT on the development of those, and then working with the support teams as well as the actual field engineers and end users for the product. So what we're doing is really having the information flows from top to bottom and bottom to up. So once the product is developed, then we're providing feedback on how well the tools and products work for our field engineers. Our testing strategy is pretty important for making sure that we're sending out the correct solution for our field engineers. So being in production, we don't want to have any problems as we roll out the product. So we have very vigorous user acceptance testing. We go through production pilots where we're actually using the product in a small environment where we're able to check in on a daily basis, and what we create here is actually a war room type environment where we're testing and updating and correcting the bugs as we find them. In fact, we have a global development team, so products or solutions that cannot be developed within the US, we actually have India doing it, so that we really have a 24-hour work on the products, getting the solutions in place. Mobile field services, in terms of the application, the global development, the field engineers were the first users of the mobile field services product. We had to make sure from an acceptance testing standpoint that we're moving forward with this product so that it was usable globally, and we wanted to make sure that given that it was a global solution, that we had the regional feedback in producing the product. So the global rollout was completed this year in January 2014. We had a rollout period of about 12 weeks and worked across the lines of business and making sure from a training standpoint that it was able to do anywhere and anytime. And we had a lot of development around the tools, navigations, and solutions within the desk manual. So kind of the key features that we had at the initial release was easy access to the functions, the task lists, notes, as well as debriefs, the parts and the offline capabilities. The key thing here is around the syncs that we have both for online and offline, making sure that trunk stock, we were able to have barcoding capabilities for around that, and then making sure that we have clear map and driving directions, and use that via the Google Maps. So I'm going to talk about the next steps from a mobile field services standpoint. So from a roadmap standpoint, we really want mobile field services to be the one app that rules them all. So from an integration standpoint, all the different areas that we have within the business flow through the mobile field apps, and the engineer has one place to go for all his information from a solution and field engineering standpoint. If you think about all the different solutions, what we're looking for from a mobile field services 2.0 in terms of our next iteration, talking about the auto sync capabilities, total offline support, the click to chat, usability features, integration to the knowledge, and tablet support. So we know that the screen is the smartphone screen is small, so we'd like to have some more real estate where folks can, the field engineers have a more easy way of looking at that. So those are the kind of key features that we're looking at for mobile field services for 2.0. So from a process roadmap, we want to make sure that from an innovation standpoint that we're really tracking the key ideas and areas from a mobile field services from a business standpoint that really improve our cost structure, our customer satisfaction levels, making sure that these have the ROIs necessary to be part of our solution map, our priority roadmap, and make sure that we're working on only those things that provide innovation for our business. Thank you very much for listening to our presentation today on the deployment of mobile field services for Oracle Corporation.